My question that kind of hit me about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you brought up earlier today, you used the term selfishness. And my question had to do with trying to bridge that weird place of guilt between selfishness and selflessness. Selflessness feels productive. It feels, when you see what happens or what is happening in the world, and with 50 million refugees caused by man's inhumanity to man, if not natural disasters or whatever, one's heart becomes heavy, one's heart becomes sorrowful, and one would like to do something. Leo Tolstoy, somewhere in the midst of all of his vast writings, wrote the words, bad Russian translation, "What then must we do?" And I love my selfishness. I love finding, all I know is how to become for myself and do the things that make me joyful. Is there something that one might do in the face of the whistle? The whistling that is calling you to do something vast for the face of the world? Can you just whistle like that and and listen to the call of that whistling to tell you what energy one might offer to the rest of the world?
Well, let's talk first about selflessness and selfishness. The reason that we are promoters of your awareness of your selfish perspective is because your creative productivity is about your point of attraction, and you cannot perceive other than through the eyes of self. So it's about finding that alignment with who you are. It's about deliberately projecting your thought in order to accomplish a point of attraction. Now here's where it leads into what you are talking about, because you cannot be part of this physical time-space reality without your desire for others being part of your vortex. And so as you see the unpleasant plight of anyone, that's a contrasting experience that causes you to put into your vortex, into your vibrational reality, a preference, a renewed desire. It makes you desire that things be better for them. So as that desire goes into your vortex, now your responsibility is to keep up with your desire. And the reason that we call it selfish is because if you are selfish enough to care about how you feel, then you will be able to focus yourself into alignment with the well-being that you seek for them. But if you are not selfish enough to care about how you feel, then you may focus upon their plight, which means you have no power to assist them. So this is the thing that's hard for so many to understand. People think that in their selflessness and sometimes sacrifice of their own alignment, they will be of more value for someone else. But you cannot get sick enough to help sick people get well. You cannot become poor enough to help poor people become prosperous. You cannot become confused enough to bring clarity to something. You have to maintain your alignment with clarity and with abundance and with well-being in order for your projection to the vortex of someone else to be of any value for them. So it turns out that your selfishness is also the only avenue toward your value or upliftment. Your humanitarianism really is about alignment with this energy that creates worlds and then focus upon. So the thing that's hard about things that are going on in the world is that you can't focus really clearly on what they're about. You really don't know their history. You don't know their vibrational stance. And so often when you get involved and try to understand their history, or you do get involved with their vibrational stance, then you become part of them and their problem rather than their vortexual solution that you have access to. And so a lot of people don't like the idea of standing back at a distance and staying in a general place of alignment while you focus upon the well-being of others. And we're not saying that you must keep your distance, because it is possible for you to care so much that you find your alignment and then get right into the midst of what they're about in your alignment, and you become one who receives constant inspiration about what to do, which is what your question is. What can I do to be of value? Well, first you have to be tuned into source, and then follow the inspiration that comes as a result of being tuned into source. But the majority of people that we visit with can't be involved and stay tuned in with source, because they get swept up in the injustice and part of the pushing against, and then they lose their connection to any of the energy that creates worlds that could assist, you see. That's why so much of the recovery is generational. In other words, one generation lives the plight and launched the rockets, and then a new generation is born into more alignment. That's why it gets better. It does get better. It gets better and better and better and better. But it is much slower than you want it to be. And it is much slower than it need be, you see.
Is there any small offering that one can make when you feel that need to, or feel the desire to want to just say, God bless it, man? I mean,
well, here's what most do that isn't effective. Most do launch the desire because in your interconnective world you see it, and so you have a contrasting experience and you launch a rocket of desire. But then most do not spend enough time focusing upon what they want and feeling themselves in vibrational alignment. In other words, fleeting thoughts are often given. Well, I hope things go better for them, or wouldn't it be nice if things do go better for them? But if you were to lie in your bed in the alignment and well-being of your own cocoon and hold anyone or anything as your object of attention while staying in alignment. You see, this is the key. Most people want to focus upon where they are in order to bring them from it. You've got to focus upon where they are headed in order to call them to it. And that's the difference. So in your concentrated focus, see them with the success that they seek. Make mental notes of the progress that is happening. Acknowledge the value of who they are. One day, Esther was sitting in an airport waiting for a flight. And there was a family across the way that Esther described to Jerry later as they got away from them. They looked like the walking dead in that they were lifeless. It was a father and a mother and a son and a daughter. And they were listless. They were without life or interest in anything. All beautiful people, but bored out of their minds in this moment in time. And as Esther looked, she could see maybe the children had been disallowed their iPhones. Esther did not know what the trauma of their moment was, but they looked miserable, all four of them. And then Esther looked down, and sitting on the table next to her was a magazine of a family in flight, maybe one that you are talking about. It was a father and a mother and a son and a daughter, and they were running away from some terror right into the lens of the camera. And the cameraman caught them in their aliveness and in their flight. And Esther looked at them, and then she looked at them, and then she looked at them, and then she looked at them, and she said to herself, I choose this. I would rather that my life experience be prompting me to the fullness of who I am. I would rather feel engaged. I would rather be moving towards something than the listless complacency of not enough to think about, you see. And so it's not possible to understand why anyone else is born where they are or what they have created around them. It's not possible for you to get inside the vibrational point of attraction of them. But even from your distance, it is possible for you to come to your conclusions about what you would wish for them, about what you know you would like for them. Esther is wanting all of the children to go to bed happy. She wants them to have food in their belly. She wants them to be warm in their sleep. She wants them to feel the security of well-being around them. She wants them to know that they have an inner being who is watching out for them. And what we say to Esther when she is focusing in those ways is that there is much more of that known by them than you give them credit for by the sound bites and little pieces of information that are given. Every now and again, there will be rain in Texas, and there will be some flash flooding, and there will be hundreds and hundreds of emails that flood into the office, all wondering about the well-being of Esther. And Esther is thinking, what flood? What flood? Because somewhere on a low creek down there where a house should never be built is a house that is floating down the river. And that's what CNN is showing. San Antonio is floating down the river. When it's just one house floating down the river, a house that should not have been there, a house that is floated down the river over and over and over and over and over again. They just kept building the house back so it will float down the river. Esther thinks CNN is replanting the house on the riverbed. And so you cannot evaluate by what you are seeing, because there are those who survive by your concern. And we are not saying that there are not things to be concerned about. We are not saying that everyone is living the happily ever after life that they want. But we are saying that your value to them is not in suffering on their behalf.
Okay. That's the big deal. Yeah. Okay.
Enough?
Yes, thank you very much.